Welcome, everyone, to Street Grace's 15th year anniversary celebration.
15 years.
It's been a long time.
Girl, hasn't it?
It has. We're here to acknowledge the 15 years of impact made. Our mission to eradicate the commercial sexual exploitation of children possible by our special guest, you.
From children protected, to laws changed, to survivors, records expunged, to predators, anonymity removed. You've been there for it all.
We're here to highlight the people that made this possible over the past 15 years. Man, are you ready for this, Faith?
Press on, and you know that is a Bob Rogers exclusive.
A Bobism, if you will.
So now we're going to introduce someone who's been there since the beginning, since 2008, Reverend Dr. Scott Weimer. Take it away, Pastor Scott.
Thank you so much, Anita and Faith. And thank you to Street Grace for this generous invitation to allow me to say a few words and then to open our celebration with prayer. It is true that I was there in the beginning of Street Grace at the corner of Peachtree Street and North Avenue, where the church I was serving has sat since 1898, the North Avenue Presbyterian Church. The reason that corner is significant is because in 2005, it was named in a report that came out of the then mayor's office, the office of the Honorable Shirley Franklin. That report revealed how domestic minor sex trafficking had become a significant issue in the city of Atlanta, and particularly in 3 different corners of Atlanta, in the area around those corners. One of those corners was our corner, Peachtree Street and North Avenue. Our congregation had been praying about how God was calling us to love our neighbors. Many of our neighbors came from 3, 5, 7 miles away and came into the city to come to our church. And we needed to be aware of who was in our immediate community, right around our neighborhood. And then we received this news that in our neighborhood, around our corner, was domestic minor sex trafficking. It called us to action. It called our people to action. We began to build coalitions. And in time, Street Grace came into formation. And we had no idea that God would use it in the mighty way that God has used it. We're so grateful that God has chosen to use us, all of us who are in this room, and all of us who have been a part of this effort. We acknowledge there's still much that needs to be done, and we know that. Yet, as one of my mentors once told me, he said, you know, Scott, God could use anyone to accomplish the work that was just accomplished, but God has chosen to use us. And so we're going to take time to thank God and to celebrate, knowing that we have much more to do. With that in mind, let us pray. Loving and gracious God, we give you thanks for this evening, for this time to be together virtually to celebrate 15 years of Street Grace. We thank you that you took small seeds that you put in the hearts of a few people and then in the hearts of more people and then more people and then more people. And then a lot of people began working together. And then Street Grace came into being. And now 15 years later, we can hardly imagine what you have done and what you will do. There's so much to do, oh God, and we pray that we would continue to be faithful to you, save our children, restore our children, restore our communities. Bless the food before us, our time together, all the words that are shared. May they bring glory and honor to Christ our Lord. In his name we pray. Amen. And now I'm going to pass it off to our good friend and chairman of our board, Millard Choate.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Street Grace, I want to welcome everybody to this evening of celebration. Celebration? We're celebrating 15 years of existence in combating child sex trafficking. We're celebrating accomplishment, the great strides that we've made. We're celebrating the geographic expansion, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee. It's terribly important that we do this. Choate Construction and myself personally have been involved with Street Grace for a number of years, primarily because I believe our God in heaven looks to us to combat these child sex predators who consume our children. And I think it's terribly important work. It's a tough topic sometimes, but it's something that we need to address and continue our great progress. So again, thank you for attending, and I'm thrilled to welcome former CEO Cheryl DeLuca Johnson. Have a great time.
Thank you so much, Scott and Millard. It's wonderful to see you both. Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl DeLuca Johnson, former Street Grace CEO. It's wonderful to be back in this space years later to see a team of over 20 working in 3 states, impacting outcomes nationally and further. It warms my heart to know that the work of Street Grace continues to move forward in more and more impactful ways, taking on new challenges and getting closer to the ultimate goal of eliminating the sexual exploitation of children. Thank you, Bob, the Street Grace Board, and the staff for inviting me to speak on this amazing 15-year anniversary. I could have never imagined it in 2008. In 2008, before we could even begin to reduce the demand, we had to help people understand that the issue existed and that it was happening here in the U.S. and Georgia. It took time as we were changing the way society had been trained to look at this problem. We worked hard to educate people on the topic through trainings, educational materials, and through a movie called The Candy Shop. The Candy Shop gave viewers an opportunity to understand the topic in a non-confrontive way by telling the story like a fable of children turned into candy and the shops and the people who chose to sell and purchase this candy. It was a breakthrough moment for many who viewed the film. So once we had educated people, we asked them to help us change the outcome in several ways. The first was through legislative action, where we worked with groups from all over the state to change laws that were biased against traffic victims instead of their perpetrators. There was a time when we were asked to testify before the Judiciary Committee, and I was one of the people to testify. And when you show up, you do sit in, like you see in the movies. The Judiciary Committee sits up here, you sit below. And the law we were trying to change was, in the state of Georgia, they were still allowed to prosecute children as prostitutes. And we were arguing that that should not happen, that nobody under the age of 18 should be allowed to be prosecuted for prostitution. And the reason for that is our laws said that you can't enter into a financial contract until you're 18. You can't consent to sex until you're 16. So how are we prosecuting 15-year-old children for prostitution, which is, in fact, a financial contract for sex? So they're sitting up there, I'm sitting below, and we testify. And one of the questions that they asked me was, so you're saying nobody does this to get their nails done or get their hair done? And I said, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we recognize that children aren't developed to the point where they can make these other decisions. And he said, so you're saying that they're not making a choice? And I told him, I said, actually, they are making a choice. But we're judging it in the wrong way. They're making a choice as though, if we're judging it as though we're sitting in the sidewalk cafe and we see somebody jump from the 10th story of a building. We go, well, that is a ridiculous decision and they deserve what they get. What we don't understand and didn't know is that the building is on fire. And they were choosing the decision that was least harmful to them. And the truth is that we as a society have let this building burn. At that moment, one of the people on the Judiciary Committee stood up, threw up his hands, and said, I guess we know where you stand on this. And I said, sir, I thought that was the point of my testimony. Well, I come to find out later that that was against protocol. But what we also found going through this process is sometimes we have to challenge protocol to make the changes that are necessary. Because sometimes protocol protects the status quo. We also understood that going after demand was different, a different protocol. Everyone wanted to rescue the victims, and we believed in that too. However, we understood that the mission was to end the trafficking of children, and to do that, we have to go after demand. This was a difficult topic to tackle for many reasons. One thing, 95% of perpetrators are male. And we were a mostly female leadership in the fight against child trafficking at that time. But there was one thing that we did know, and that was that for every man who would purchase a child, we had thousands of men wanting to stand on the other side. This was the beginning of FACE, Fathers Against Child Exploitation, where we mobilized with the help of Aronde Creighton, men from all over Georgia, including my husband Ernie, to understand, speak, and work against the trafficking of children. Here is a clip from FACE.
This is Ernie Johnson, and in 25 years of broadcasting sports on a national level, I've seen time and time again those moments when athletes come up with their best in the biggest moments, when they're called on to produce in the clutch, to make a difference. And you hear it so often in sports, to step up when the game's on the line. But what I want to talk to you about now is not a game, it's an issue, and it's a big one. And it requires men to make a difference, to be heard, to step up. I'm talking about the sex trafficking of kids. I'm not speaking as a sportscaster here, but as a husband and father, and as a member of a group called FACE, Fathers Against Child Exploitation. We'd love to have you join our ranks, to become more aware of the issue, and to become an agent of change for this generation and the generations to come. Now understand this, by and large it is men who buy and sell children for sex. But as men, we shouldn't be the problem. We should be the solution. We should be the fathers who teach our sons that women are to be respected and protected, not objectified. We should be the men who are unafraid and unashamed to confront the problem head on with a simple message to those who buy and sell children. No more. I'm asking you, in fact, I'm challenging you to take the FACE pledge. Can you do these three things? 1, walk in integrity by not purchasing sex. 2, exhibit courage by raising awareness and speaking out against domestic minor sex trafficking while reversing today's distorted perception of sex. And 3, leave a legacy by mentoring the next generation on this issue. There it is, men. This isn't a game, this is real life stuff. Here's hoping you'll join us and step up.
You know, one of the most valuable people in a boy's life is his father. It's from his father he learns which way to go. It's from his father he learns what he should care about, what he shouldn't care about. It's from his father he learns how to treat a woman or how to fix a car. And it's a very, very vital and valuable role in a boy's life. And without an active father in a boy's life, the possibilities of destruction are endless. And unfortunately, sex trafficking is one of those detrimental issues that plagues our society, that we as men can combat by just being present. I understand the struggle of not having a father in your life. I didn't have my biological father in my life. And all the pain and all the struggles with insecurity and insignificance and all the questions about what am I supposed to be doing and what am I not supposed to be doing, I fully grasp. I went through those exact same things. And so much could have been avoided had I only had that voice, had I only had that presence of that father in my life. So if you're out there as a father or just as a man who can be involved in the lives of some young boys, I challenge you and encourage you to be present. I challenge you and encourage you to be there, to be consistent, and to be a voice.
Every night in our country, little boys and little girls are forced to have sex with adult men.
Pimps and exploiters use a child's hunger to lure them into having sex with.
18 is the average age of a girl when she is sold for sex to a man for the first time.
Where I live in Atlanta, Georgia, over 7,200 men will attempt to purchase a child for sex this month alone.
Men who look just like you and me.
It's time for men to stop.
It's time for men to stop.
It's time for men to stop the sexual exploitation of children.
It's time for men to stop being the problem
and become the solution.
In 15 years, we've gone from an organization of 2 to over 20, and from a nonprofit in Norcross, Georgia, to one with offices in Texas, Tennessee, and Georgia, with programming reaching a national audience and even receiving awards alongside Microsoft and Burger King as the second most effective brand in America. Street Grace isn't done yet. We know that every great achievement is only a step forward to tackle the next obstacle to our children being safe from sex trafficking. So although Street Grace celebrates tonight an achievement that did not seem possible 15 years ago, they are already looking forward to the next steps. Through the years and moving forward, so many wonderful people made the 15 years of impact that Street Grace made possible. And tonight, we'll hear from a few of them. And we want to say thank you to everyone who played a part, gave their time or resources to protect children. It is working, and we look forward to working with you as we continue this fight. Thank you to all of those joining us at home, and to all of you who keep the protection of our children top priority, because children are priceless.
Scott, thank you so much for that powerful prayer.
He really took us to church, didn't he?
Man, we needed that one.
Yes, we did.
Millard, we are so grateful for you and Choke Construction being presenting sponsors. And Cheryl, man, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you and your leadership in the beginning.
No,
you
we
guys
wouldn't.
all paved the way for us here today.
And there's another group that has paved the way as well, and that's our volunteers. They legislatively advocate for survivors. They lead youth through the Youth Leadership Academy. They provide pro bono legal services, and they answer our hotline calls through direct services. The list just keeps going on.
It does. And you mentioned direct services, which is a huge impact here at Street Grace. And luckily, we have our lovely Shaniqua Steps here today to talk to you guys about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shanita and Faith. Here at Street Grace, we have a 24/7 hotline where anyone can call any time of day. And I love this hotline because you can call it for resources, if you have a referral, or you just have any general questions regarding what we do or what we can do in the community to help serve you. This would include if you need resources for clothing, any resources for shelter, or you have questions about like a neighbor or a friend that may have been trafficked, and we can also help you with that. We can receive your referral through various avenues, which will include emailing. You can go on our website or you can give us a call. After we've received those referrals, then we would complete an evidence-based assessment, which means we'll go out within 24 hours. The youth that come to us come from various backgrounds, such as DJJ. They have a lot of truancy issues. They have issues within the home, or they're on runaway status. I get a lot of calls sometimes for emergency response, which means that we have police, local police departments, the FBI are calling for assistance for youth who have been found, who have been trafficked. And so what we do, we work closely with those partners to make sure that they can come into our care coordination phase, which means they're assigned to a care coordinator, and we go out to see them at least 2 times a month within a 12 to 15 month time frame. If the family or youth decides that they want to have services longer than that, we can definitely do that. One thing I also love about this is we travel wherever the youth goes. So wherever they go, we will follow. We're going to be that constant factor in their life at all times, so they don't have to worry about anyone who abandons them. We're always going to be there for them. Another thing that I love about the program is we help the youth set goals through our care plans, which are focus on the 6 dimensions of well-being. This will give them a time frame and a time span to identify goals for themselves personally, and we're there to push them and help them get to those goals. And once they receive those goals completed, they will receive something called a Staying Well plan. This is a plan that they go with them once they leave the services, and it's something that they can look back on to say, these are the things that I've accomplished, and I know if I have any other issues moving forward, I know that I can do anything. Another great thing that I love about this is that I am personally able to call each family and each child at the 6 months and the 12 months to make sure that they have not recidivated back to the life. And what I mean about recidivated, returning back to the life of trafficking or returning back to those high risk factors such as substance abuse or any mental health abuse. If they need any additional resources, I'm here, and Street Grace is here as well to give them those resources that they need to move forward. I'm happy to say that over the past decade, we have served 3,500 youth, and with services being at 91,000. We have had some great program completion stories. We've been able to help mothers who've been pregnant find housing. We've helped one youth who didn't know how to drive. We helped get her driving lessons, and now she's able to get her own car to drive herself around to work. We've also been able to reunite families back together who have been separated throughout the system, whether it be the justice system or the DFAC system itself. So please, please, please be able to join us in the fight to be able to serve the youth that we are now able to serve through our care coordination phase here at Street Grace.
Thank you, Shaniqua. The work our direct service team does is truly amazing.
It's really phenomenal.
I mean, they're meeting with the youth on a daily basis. They're connecting with them. This is truly a transformative thing that we're seeing happen in the healing process of our youth, and we're just so grateful for them.
So we also know that everyone has a significant role to play, which is why we really want to thank our volunteers.
We even have our good friend Keisha, who volunteered to join us tonight.
Thank you, Shanita and Faith. I'm so glad to be here with you today. Hugs! So glad to see you both again. What made me get involved in Street Grace? An interesting story. Well, I knew all of my life growing up that there was something that happened to me, and I didn't know how to ID it. Not just me, but other children in my community. And when I was introduced to Street Grace by my ministry, one of the amazing advocates came to our church, and I then began to learn about C-sect. The very first time I heard the word C-sect, commercial sexual exploitation of children, I then began to have flashbacks about some of the things I went through in my childhood growing up, which I equally learned that was exploitation and that was grooming. Human trafficking, as it were. When I first encountered Street Grace, that was January 2018. I remember it like it was yesterday. Advocacy Day. At the time, it was called Lobby Day, but now Advocacy Day. I felt like I was called to be a part of this amazing movement to demand an end to commercial sexual exploitation of children because I was one of those children. When I go back and I think about the things that I went through and some other children went through in my community, Street Grace gave it language. Commercial sexual exploitation of children. There's a grooming process and so many other things that tie into that I didn't know how to ID. And when I was first introduced to Street Grace, and that was Advocacy Day, January 2018, just like it was yesterday, I remember it so clearly. And I heard the speakers talk about their experiences, and I heard Bob, the president of Street Grace, talk about what it looked like, and some other leaders in our community talk about what this looks like and how to demand an end. At that point, I knew that I was called to be here, to be an advocate, to be one of those individuals to help demand an end. And I understand that restoration is a huge part of it, and we need that. But what Street Grace taught me is that prevention is better than cure. They taught me how to ID what was happening to me when I was growing up and other children in my community and our surrounding communities. And as a part of the faith-based community, Street Grace is becoming a household name. And other individuals and children, just like me, are learning how to ID what's happening to them. And prevention is better than cure. I love the trainings that I've gone through as a community advocate and a part of the Speakers Bureau. The training, Street Grace teach you what it looks like and the importance and the effectiveness of your idea becoming law. Because prevention is better than cure. So I am so grateful to be here today. My ministry and I, we're grateful to be here, a part of the faith-based community. And as a community advocate, I'm thrilled to be here celebrating 15 years of impact.
Hi, everyone. I'm Monet Colbert, and I'm a longtime volunteer with Street Grace and couldn't be more proud. What actually brought me to this organization was two personal experiences. One, 7 years ago, what landed on my driveway was a report on a sting that happened literally in my backyard. And I won't name the person, I won't name the area. Many of you are watching it actually on Netflix, and I'll leave it there. In saying that, I realized at that point I needed to get more involved because I was actually entering a reality check of my own in my own story as a survivor. And I realized we can be a victim to circumstances or we can be victorious in circumstances. And I wanted to really just get my life back on track. And at that time, I was actually in the process of publishing my first book. And I wanted to take the proceeds from that book and actually do something where I felt it was more than just being a self-published author, that I could take the proceeds and actually change someone's life. And I had actually attended my first lobby day, which is where I had met Bob Rogers, and realized that, you know what, this might be kind of like my entry into figuring out what I needed to do. And so I decided to actually join forces with Street Grace. We had my book launch. It was very successful, and we took the proceeds from that. And I'd love to take the credit, but the credit goes to Bob Rogers. He knew at that time I had a cosmetic line, and he knew I wanted to do more on the front line. But me as a survivor, I could not be involved in that because it would just obviously be a trigger for me, but I wanted to get more involved. And so what we did was we took a product within my cosmetic line and we actually produced it in such a way that we were able to put it out on the streets, that the those who are out on the streets unwilling, not by their choice, I should say, having a tool to actually be able to be rescued when they are ready. You know, it's a difficult life for a lot of young women and boys and men that are involved in that space. So they had a tool to get back. We created probably like 1,000 of them, and I think it's something like 100, 150, 200 we were able to rescue. So it was really exciting. So that was like one of those projects I was super proud of. Another one is being involved in Transaction Intercept, which I know you guys have probably heard about, and if you haven't, you're going to hear more about it. That one, actually, I was part of I was part of that project when it was first starting. So to see it blossom to where it is today, all I can tell you is that this organization and the team work countless nights, countless hours. They put their heart and soul into everything. The resources, the teams that they gather. As an organization, we really wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for the people that genuinely care. With that being said, you guys at Street Grace, thank you so much for the 15 years that you've already put in. I was only here half of the way, but I'm telling you, I'm going to be here for the next 15. I'm so proud of you guys. Thank you.
We are so grateful for you. And we know that we are better together because together we can make a huge impact in the life of a child.
That's right. Here at Street Grace, what we make top priority is making sure education is readily available. So when it comes to parents, if you're sitting in the carpool lane or you only have 30 minutes on a Tuesday night, this is available for you. And students, if you want to become a leader in your community, it's available. We are here to make this as easy as possible for you all.
Yeah, we really are. Yeah. And we know, too, that music, animation, and color is what helps students retain the information better.
That's right. I need the same thing in order for me to retain this information. And so having this for the students and even parents too, we don't want to just sit and look at something that's kind of plain and boring, right? So we want to be involved in these things, but this is why we have these tools for you all. And also we need that parent cooperation so you all can make this difference at home.
And that's right, Shanita. So we actually have two wonderfully involved mothers who are going to share just a part of their story with us. So here is Sue Ann and Carniola.
Well, thank you, Shanita and Faith. I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been involved with Street Grace through a volunteer program. So I've been in the trainings and I took the trainings to my church. We're looking forward to taking the youth leadership program as well for our youth program. And what made me to get involved? My family is a victim of social media sex extortion, in which it has been a very hard situation for us, but now that we have been through the healing process, we would like to be an advocate about it and be able to help other families that have been also a victim or are not aware that they're a victim of this. To me, the most important thing is first is see the signs. There's a lot of signs that our children show that we are not aware that there are signs of either sex extortion or trafficking. And it's important that as parents, we actually get educated and that we are aware of our surroundings. Unconditional love is another one of my number one. We have to love our children. We have to understand them, know where they're coming from, have empathy. A lot of times what I've seen is that in my case, I was so caught up thinking that my son was actually just being a teenager and his grades went down and showing some signs, but it was actually part of that process that he was going through the sex extortion. So I encourage you parents to sit down with your kids, ask questions, talk about social media. Who are they talking to? Look at their social media and see if it's people that they know. Because right now we know that we live in the technology era and that children are looking to be liked. And sometimes they're involved with people that can harm them. So that is my recommendation as a parent, as a victim, and as a actually also a youth advocate. So I do want to thank you all for being part of this movement and getting involved in such an amazing cause.
Thank you, Carniola. The work that you are doing is so inspiring and so needed. My name is Sue Ann Gran, and I am a proud mom of 4 teenagers. I have triplet boys who are college-aged and a daughter who's still in high school. I got involved with Street Grace just about 2 years ago when my family and I moved from California to Georgia, and I was looking to get involved with a nonprofit. I knew that this topic of trafficking was still on my heart. I knew that I had to find the just right message to share to get other parents to listen. And we were able to partner with Street Grace. They already had the just right message to share. And that is in the form of a program called Keeping Kids Safe in a Digital Age. So we were able to host a series of webinars, and in the beginning just had a handful of people showing up for these webinars. I was able to then share with my company what we were doing, and we were able to get even more people to listen, more people involved. This is a program that you can bring to your churches, to your schools, to Cub Scout and Girl Scout groups. Really, the sky is the limit. And I think parents will listen to this message because they all agree that our kids spend way too much time online. So if you want to get involved, and this is just one of the many programs that Street Grace has, ask about it. And I think it's just so important, like Carniola shared, to keep that dialogue open. Set yourself up to a point where you are the expert in your child's eye and they're not seeking the information from outside sources. Sadly, the predators have gotten a lot more sophisticated and they know how to find the weakness of our children. And so we need to be a step ahead of the game. Thank you, Street Grace, for giving us the tools needed to keep our kids safe online and out in the community. I am so proud to be a part of the Street Grace family, and congratulations on 15 years of impact. I can't wait to see where we go next.
Thank you so much for sharing. As a mom, I really appreciate the work you are doing to help protect children from trafficking. My name is Kamala Zulfagari. I'm Executive Director of Street Grace, and I'm so glad to be here tonight. And I really love talking about prevention. That's actually why I'm here. So prior to being at Street Grace, I was the state's chief human trafficking prosecutor. And in that role, every case I encountered involved a child who had already been exploited. Now, as the mother of an 8-year-old, I desperately want to work to prevent trafficking, to stop trafficking before it happens. While I was at the Attorney General's office, we worked closely with Street Grace on a number of projects, including the mandated reporter training. This was a video series to train those who work with children how to identify and report signs of exploitation. Another program that we worked on was Not Buying It. This was a huge campaign and one of the first campaigns that was focused on stopping the demand that fuels human trafficking. And I think we have a clip of that here.
It's more real than you know.
It's happening all around us, and Georgia is no exception.
The youngest, most trusting members of our state
are falling victim to sexual exploitation and trafficking.
It's time that criminals who purchase sex from children know that the secret is out.
And Georgia's not going to stand for it.
It just takes ordinary people being informed,
standing up,
and making a statement.
So when you tell me you didn't know,
we're not buying it.
Georgia's not buying it. For more information on how you can make a difference, go to ganotbuyingit.org.
It's so fun to see these faces again. As a matter of fact, one of my friends just sent me a picture of a not buying it sign up at a Georgia rest stop 6 years later. Programs like this are more powerful and impactful when our leaders take a role. That's why I am so excited that we are being joined tonight by my former, shall I say, boss, the former Attorney General, Sam Olens. Sam Olens was one of the first champions of this matter, and I'm excited that he's here. Sam?
It's my pleasure to be with you here tonight to celebrate Street Grace and 15 years of impact to eradicate human trafficking. When I first became Attorney General, Georgia had very few laws, and frankly, they were not worth talking about. So we knew we needed to be aggressive and we needed partners, and Street Grace was our first partner. It was very important to go after the commercial sexual exploitation of children. And those partnerships grew and grew, both federal, state, and local. They were greatly assisted by us hiring the state's first human trafficking prosecutor, Camilla Sofagari. And Camilla was fantastic, and folks from throughout the state called her to ask her to assist with prosecutions because they frankly didn't know enough about CSEC, let alone to prosecute it. We then started, we really as Street Grace, the Georgia Not Buying It campaign, which was huge because that was the first effort to really go after the demand side. Heretofore, everyone was dealing with the traffickers, but really not dealing with the victims or the buyers. And it was important to tell the community that the victims needed special attention and that the buyers needed to go to jail. No longer was that supposed to be a slap on the wrist that they needed to go to jail. And through that campaign, it went national. Texas and numerous other states followed, where Street Grace got to have an effect, far from Georgia, helping other communities around the state. Once again, the big issue was demand and reduction. You had to have an effect and you had to change people's minds. And Street Grace has done a fantastic job of leading that way. They then followed it with the Unmasked campaign. Once again, another effort to tell folks that when you buy a child or a woman for sex, that's jail time. No longer is it a misdemeanor. No longer should you look the other way. So once again, I'm thrilled to be here to once again express my thanks to Street Grace and their 15 years of great success helping victims, not only in Georgia, but elsewhere in our country.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's so good to look at these programs and see what an impact they have had. Earlier, you saw our Keeping Kids Safe in the Digital Age and our Youth Leadership Academy trainings. Those were actually filmed at Memorial Drive Presbyterian Church, another one of our crucial partners that was responsible for bringing us into Houston, Texas. Another project that really showcased the impact that partnerships can make is the Stop Trafficking event. We did this in conjunction with BBDO, Gwinnett County Schools, government officials, and law enforcement. And we have a clip of that event here.
The first time I was sold for sex, I was taken to a big house. Other girls are sitting there crying, and you could hear girls screaming upstairs. And I kind of had an idea at that point that I was going to get hurt. I did nothing to deserve this.
4.5 years old, I was lured from our front yard by a neighbor in our community. We were held there overnight where we were sexually and mentally abused. I thought that my neighbors were like my protectors. My community wasn't safe anymore to me, period.
Every year, up to 3,600 kids are sold for sex in the state of Georgia. But that's just a number on a piece of paper. It's easily thrown away. It's easily written off as a statistic. And it doesn't really affect us that much. Many times you hear the statement, that number can't be real. But it is. And we're going to show you in a way that's too big for us to continue to ignore.
Things were looking pretty good this morning on 85 southbound, but now we're seeing a delay.
Now, this is Chopper 46 video of a caravan of school buses. The group that put this on, called Street Grace, came together to speak out against this awful practice.
Human trafficking is a here problem wherever here is for you. The majority of sex trafficking that occurs is our children who are being bought and sold by members of our community.
We can stop it. It does not have to happen to any child. My wife and I have 2 daughters, and I just cannot imagine this happening to them. And if it was happening to them, I would just hope somebody would step up and help.
Human trafficking is the fastest growing, second largest illegal business on the planet. The 72 yellow school buses that are assembled here today, each representing 50 of Georgia's children, are a difficult reminder that these statistics represent lives.
I hate that my city is associated with such a horrible crime.
I feel like too many people just bypass things when they can really actually do something to help.
We remain committed to preventing any child from ending up in such a horrific nightmare and to rescuing those who may already be involved.
I hope that this opens people's eyes when they see those numbers going by on the buses. They think of the kids in their lives.
I'm here to tell you, it is a long road to recovery, and no child deserves to have to experience something like this.
It is a very hard topic to talk about. If you do not have this conversation with your children, somebody else is.
It's a significant event in the life of Atlanta to be able to rise up one city, one voice, one cause. You just have to be willing to step into the conversation, engage with kids.
Kids need to know that they can say no, that they have boundaries, and they need to feel like they're gonna be believed if something does happen, because if they have nobody to go to, they're not gonna say anything.
When we're talking about one of our most vulnerable populations, children, we don't have just a legal obligation, we have a moral obligation as well.
Nobody was there for me. That's why I lift my voice to make sure that we keep our children safe.
Doing what I do now and being able to help others is the only thing that makes my story worth it. Don't sit back and do nothing because you feel like the problem is too big and you can't make enough of a difference. Because you can.
That was one of my favorite events that we have done so far. So now I'm excited to introduce you to my former boss, Attorney General Chris Carr, who's going to continue to talk about the work that is being done.
Hi, I'm Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr, and I'm proud to join in celebrating the 15-year anniversary of Street Grace. The fact of the matter is, there are those in our society who seek to buy and sell children for sex. And when they do, they destroy a child's life, their youth, and their innocence. In Georgia, we've chosen to say no more, not on our watch. In 2019, with the support of Governor Brian Kemp, First Lady Marty Kemp, and the leaders in the General Assembly, we created Georgia's first statewide human trafficking prosecution unit. Last year alone, we rescued and assisted 116 victims. That's 116 lives that will forever be changed. I can't think of a more uniting cause than the fight to end human trafficking. Over the years, we've worked with Street Grace, the Gwinnett County School System, and many others for the Stop Traffic event in preparation for our capital city to serve as host for the Super Bowl. We've partnered with attorneys general from around the country as the national spokesman for the Demand and End program. It's evident that we're stronger together, and we want to thank Street Grace for working tirelessly over the past 15 years to shine a light on this critical mission as we continue fighting to save lives. Once again, congratulations to everyone at Street Grace. We look forward to continuing this journey together as we work to end human trafficking wherever it occurs.
As a Texan myself, I would like to introduce Senator Cornyn. He's going to talk a bit about his legislative efforts in Texas.
Hi, I'm Texas Senator John Cornyn. Welcome to this year's virtual gala, and congratulations on Street Grace's 15th anniversary. Protecting our children is at the top of my priority list, especially given the prevalence of threats online. Last year, my bill called the Protect Our Children Act was signed into law to help law enforcement officers combat online child exploitation. I've also introduced a bill called the Project Safe Childhood Act, which would improve the investigation and prosecution of this heinous crime. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish so far, and I appreciate your tireless commitment to this fight. Congratulations again, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. Shanita, we've heard from a lot of really great people tonight.
We have, and every single one of you guys have been an essential part of this impact in the past 15 years.
So now what we're going to do is hand it off to our fearless leader, Bob Rogers.
Thank you, Shanita and Faith. Great job tonight. What you all don't know is that Shanita and Faith wanted to really play up the Mission Possible theme, and they thought the opening scene should be them leaping out of an airplane, with parachutes, of course, but they thought it would be an inspiring way to start the evening, and it probably would have been, but fortunately, no airplanes were available. Thank you, Scott, for offering an opening thought and a prayer. If it were not for you, Norwood Davis, and a handful of other people, Street Grace would not be here today. Thank you, Millard, for your leadership as the board chair, for your continued support, and for Choate Construction once again being our presenting sponsor. This evening, and the work that we do every day would not be possible if it were not for sponsors and friends like Memorial Drive Presbyterian Church, 12 Stone Church, Victory Church, Perimeter Church, Delta Airlines, BBDO Atlanta, the Grant Partners, Hollis Strategies, and so many more. Thank you to our entire board. Street Grace is blessed to have one of the most thoughtful and supporting boards anywhere. They put wind in our sails every day by their desire and willingness to lead and serve so sacrificially. Thank you, Cheryl, for being a pioneer in the anti-trafficking movement and for your leadership in the early days. And thank you for never walking away. Your role has changed, but your commitment to the work and mission of Street Grace has never wavered. And thank you to all of our speakers, guests, and volunteers who showed up to make this evening special, and especially you. So many of you have been with us on this journey for the entire 15 years. But what a great evening of reflection and gratitude. It's hard to not be overwhelmed by what has been accomplished, but it's also hard to not be overwhelmed by what's left to do. We need to capitalize on this moment and accelerate now. This is the time. Next year in 2024, we are poised to have our most impactful year ever for the 8th consecutive year. We truly are, and I want to quickly share why we believe that and how you can help. Street Grace Materials went international this year. For the first time, our Youth Leadership Academy, which was already translated fully into Spanish, was just translated into Thai and is being used to educate girls in Thailand throughout a new partnership that we've established with Global Servants. In 2024, it looks like it'll be translated and used in Cambodia as well. You heard Shaniqua Steps, our VP of Programming, mention that over the last several years, our direct services team has served over 3,100 children and provided more than 91,000 direct services. And in the first 9 months of this year, we've already had 2,222 volunteer hours dedicated to manning the 24-hour hotline. That's 2,222 hours. Wow. Policy, Jamie Carruthers, our VP and Executive Director of Texas, with his team, has assisted in crafting over 30 pieces of legislation this year at the state and national levels, paving the way for greater services to be offered for those victimized and successful arrests and prosecutions for those offending or seeking to harm our kids. Kamala Zulfagari, our Vice President and Executive Director of Georgia, and her team have now trained over 100 attorneys on how to represent survivors to get records expunged and vacated so they can move forward and get jobs to create a life for themselves and their families. Our Survivor Advisory Council is led so well by Faith Cadona in Georgia and Rachel Fisher in Texas. This group of subject matter experts guide us and advise us on everything that we do, and we are so much better for it. We're also hosting our first ever Survivor Retreat next month in Texas. There's two last things I want to touch on, and then I want to explain our ask of you. One is, you've heard me mention Youth Leadership Academy. It's our 7-week leadership training program for middle school and high school kids. This year, we have already graduated over 790 kids from the program. This does not include the work that's being done in Thailand and Cambodia. The need that we have is that we are determined to raise $150,000 outside of our regular budget to create an online youth academy. So any youth anywhere with internet access can log in and have the full YLA experience and become part of the Alumni Association. They'll be a part of that for 3, 4, 5 years, and we believe that we can turn that 790 kids in 2023 into 7,900 kids the year after the platform is launched. And finally, I want to talk about Transaction Intercept. For those of you that don't know, it's a technology platform that has been evolving for us over the last 5 to 7 years. Originally, we launched it as a way to understand the buying habits and patterns of people who would attempt to harm and sexually exploit our children. We did that, and it started well. We were intercepting texts and phone calls from people who were attempting to purchase children. We were tracking the information. We were able to respond and collect the data that we received from it. And then the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, we began to transition it as a tool that's more useful and utilized by law enforcement. And that worked well. But we were very limited with our capacity. Only one law enforcement agency at a time from anywhere in the country could be in the program at once. So 15 months ago, we started having conversations with continued support from BBDO. We started having conversations with a group of volunteers from Microsoft. And over the last year or so, there's been a team of over 100 volunteers from Microsoft who have volunteered their time and donated their efforts and energies to help us rebuild and launch Transaction Intercept. We will relaunch it by the end of this year, testing it in markets beginning around the country, and then we will have a full domestic reach to all 50 states in the United States of America. This new technology platform will intercept phone calls, voicemails, emails, and messages from people attempting to harm children or sexually exploit them. It will collect all of it. Collected in a permanent file associated with that name and phone number. We will send deterrence messages. It will be utilized by law enforcement agencies around the country for operations that they're conducting with the laws that have been written. It will create an environment where more successful arrests and prosecutions can occur. And this will be the most technologically advanced and sophisticated piece of technology of its kind on the planet, fighting the demand for trafficking. It's a marvelously exciting thing, and it's an absolute perfect example of what we set out to do several years ago when we said we got really tired of getting together at the end of the year, celebrating all of the accomplishments that we had done, and then going home and not really saying that sometimes we were further behind than we were at the beginning of the year because the bad actors outpaced us. This is an opportunity to scale up in a sustainable way and have a significant impact in the anti-trafficking space and the counter-demand efforts that are taking place. We are unbelievably excited about this launch. Again, this has been possible by the continued work and support of BBDO, by a team of 100 or so volunteers from Microsoft, and we will launch that by the end of this year and begin testing it in markets. Here's the exciting thing. For about $1.2 million, we can take this product, make it available to every law enforcement agency in the country for free for 3 years to get it up and running and to have the impact that we want to have. Every NGO that wants to utilize it to do prevalent studies in their market, every research institution that wants to use the data that will be collected, because it will be the largest data set in this kind of a data set that will be collected in the world, has access to this for free over the next 3 years. So we're trying to raise $1.2 million to finish this project and to launch it in 2024, so it's available to every law enforcement agency in the country, and about $150,000 to $200,000 to take this technology platform for the Youth Leadership Academy across the country. These are our two opportunities for the most significant and substantial and sustainable impact and reach that we've ever had the opportunity to embrace. And we're asking you to join with us, to join with me, to join with our board, to join with the team at Street Grace as we sacrificially give to make this happen. This combined need of $1.5 million that we have left to raise is outside of our normal $2.2 million budget. It will accelerate our mission to eradicate the commercial sexual exploitation of children in a way that we have not seen before. It will protect more lives than anything we have ever done before. As we accomplish this, we will advance the mission over the next 5 years in ways none of us can even imagine. And I, for one, look forward to reporting to you at our 20-year celebration about the hundreds of thousands of stories that were prevented because we all came together and said, enough is enough. Let's do this. It's within reach, and we have a solution. Now we just need to be able to take action. It is with a grateful heart that I say thanks to God and thanks to you. We could not have done this had you not been His hands extended to us and to the work that we are doing. Thanks so much for being with us this evening. Thanks for all that you do and will continue to do, and know that we're here to help and serve in any way that we can. I'm grateful for everyone who's been a part of our history and everyone that will be a part of the future. Have a wonderful evening.